Welcome back to the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Shaliyev, and these are the top stories. All is quiet in Zhanaozen claimed the leadership of the company Kazmunaygas. The employees, though, intend to continue their strike. Early parliamentary elections enter the public consciousness as both parliamentarians and exiled politician Rahat Aliyev openly discuss the possibility. New special TV channel and newspaper will be launched in Astana during the upcoming OSCE summit to cover the events. It looks like politicians in Astana could soon begin preparing for the parliamentary elections. The possibility was discussed on Monday by the country's MP Tasmay Simanbayev. The possibility of early parliamentary elections was openly acknowledged in the Senate on Monday. Apparently, it is anti-constitutional to hold two elections at the same time, said Senator Tasmay Simanbayev. Parliamentarians term ends at the same time with the presidents. Thus, the MPs believe it is possible that dissolution is imminent and re-elections might happen already next year. Simanbayev is confident that the current single-party convocation will be the last one in the political history of the country. The upcoming elections will be for a multi-party parliament. We have a lot of different political parties, and if they all will be represented, it will be interesting to see the work process and different alternative proposals. The role of the parliament will be indeed nationwide. Nevertheless, the lower chamber sees two scenarios of the situation's further development. The early parliamentary elections could take place in spring of 2011 or both presidential and parliamentary elections at the same time in 2012. The MPs are not sure who will make the final decision over the issue. Will it be the people or the political elite? The OSCE chairmanship and the adherence to international standards require Kazakhstan to take a path of multi-party parliament. After 3 years of single-party rule, the MPs are only now realizing that this special Kazakh path of democracy contradicts international standards. Everyone guesses about the future, but according to the law and constitution, our term ends in 2012. The next convocation of the parliament should not be based on a single-party principle. However, the multi-party system will not be able to radically affect the common politics in the country. The state simply needs it because of international standards and requirements. The platform of all political parties is the same and people made their choice. But any party has a right to exist if the society demands it. And it doesn't matter if the people support only one party. A strategy needs to be developed to be supported by the electorate. No less than 7 parties will run in the upcoming parliamentary elections, say the MPs. Even though deputies support the idea of a multi-party system, they are still skeptical about the oppositional parties entering the parliament. The current convocation is comprised of 107 MPs and 98 of them represent ruling Nur Otan, headed by the president of the country. Another 10 people were delegated from the Assembly of Peoples of Kazakhstan, the organization also chaired by Nursultan Nazarbayev. The MPs assume that the issue over early elections will be clarified closer to the new year. In a change of pace, the exiled president's ex-son-in-law Rahat Aliyev talks about the early presidential elections, going as far as setting the approximate date of the event at May 2011. In his blog, the exiled politician and President Nazarbayev's ex-son-in-law Rahat Aliyev predicts early presidential elections and even provides the approximate date May 2011. According to Aliyev, the hasty elections are needed to prevent the opposition to prepare well for the event. The plan is quite simple. The remnants of the opposition begin their preparations thinking they have a lot of time ahead when the date is set completely out of the blue, thus making only Nazarbayev well prepared for the elections. The leader of the unregistered party Alga, Vladimir Kozlov, has announced his intention to run for the presidency long before Aliyev's statement in the blog. At the moment, Kozlov is intensively learning Kazakh and intends to run in spite of possible date changes. Today, the presidential elections represent a closed loop without a possible entry inside it. It is a sort of a rim that works for its own benefit, forcing people to vote for Nazarbayev, and the votes of those who don't attend the elections are still used in his favor. Analysts treat the new rumor seriously and note that one of 2 elections in 2012, be it presidential or parliamentary, will have to be held out of turn. Early parliamentary elections are more likely if we talk about elections in general or as a way of setting the new balance of power within the political elite, including the softening of oppositional criticism. The political analyst says if the parliamentary elections will be held in 2011, it will help to lower the degree of political tension. At the same time, no one denies the possibility of early presidential elections either.
Perhaps this is why referendum has become one of the most popular words of late.
Monday was the 5th day of the strike in the oil-rich town of Zhanaozen. Tagan Kashanov, a trade union leader whose arrest led to unrests, was released from jail with his measure of restraint changed to house arrest. At the same time, Kashanov's colleagues intend to continue striking until the activists complete freedom. The protesters linked the arrest with the upcoming alternative forum planned to be held at the same time with the OSCE summit in Astana.
Trade union activist Tagan Kashanov has been released from jail and placed under house arrest. Kashanov's detention 5 days ago sparked a strike of 2,000 employees of Ozyenmunaygas. On Saturday, October 23rd, Kashanov was tried for drug possession after police supposedly found some heroin and hashish in his pocket. He was not caught in the cafe but in an official car, and the drugs were found in the overalls. Hundreds of cars passed by, but only his was stopped. I'm absolutely confident this was a provocation. Only parents and 2 other family members were allowed to be present at the trial. Colleagues and supporters had to wait for the decision outside. After Kashanov's release, his relatives invited all supporters to a traditional Thanksgiving dinner for a good cause. Why don't you admit that he is not a drug addict? Isn't it obvious? Tagan Kashanov never joined his friends at the table. In the evening, workers speculated who and how could put so much pressure on the activists who feared nothing before. Many locals heard of intimidations. Damish Sargulova, a journalist and a member of Party Azad, talks about her personal experience. These people told my mother that unless I shut up, they will kill all of my kids and then kill me. My mother's blood pressure immediately went up. She fainted and neighbors had to call an ambulance. Ozyenmunaygas employees intend to continue their protest until the case against Tagan Kashanov will be dropped. They have already sent a letter to Mangistau governor, although without any results so far. The company's downtime will foremost affect our main shareholder, the state. Also, the strikers will not get their salaries for this period, while many of them have mortgage credits to pay. Employees link the criminal prosecution with the oppositional forum scheduled for the same date as the OSCE summit in December. Kashanov, like other trade union activists, were invited to speak in Astana on behalf of Zhanaozen residents.
It was later revealed that one of the conditions for Kashanov's release was indeed a ban on communicating with anyone except for his parents. Trying not to aggravate the situation, the activist family restricted his interaction with the press and other trade union members. While the employees demand to drop the criminal case, Ozyenmunaygas has already lost more than 1,000 tons of oil.
Tagan is not a drug addict. The number of protesters ready to openly speak their minds have visibly reduced compared to the March strike, attended by almost all employees of the company. People admit that they are afraid to be persecuted as Kashanov. On October 25th, Transportation Department employees joined the protest and expected a soon meeting with the local mayor, police or prosecutor. Instead, the general director of the Ozyenmunaygas Kiyikbay Ishmanov personally attempted to persuade people to return to work. The head of the company listed all the merits of the enterprise, but still failed to inspire the protesters. As a head of the company, I am asked every day when employees will return to work. I reply that many already have. I'm not accusing you of missing your work, I support you. But if your strike will continue, the situation with Kashanov will only get worse.
The new surge in arrests of activists is reported in the South Kazakhstan and Karaganda regions. Policemen have detained Tahir Muhamedjanov, the deputy chairman of the movement Miners Family, as well as the head of the medical workers trade union Ibrahim Junizbekov. Just like striking oil workers, the activists see the reason for their prosecution as the upcoming unofficial forum.
In civilian clothes attempted to hospitalize the deputy chairman of the public organization Miners Family, Tahir Muhamedjanov, to a psychiatric hospital. The civil activist from Shahtinsk was taken by force from his apartment. After arriving to the hospital, doctors tried to give him an injection. Muhamedjanov viewed the incident as a purge before the OSCE summit in Astana, since the activist was invited to an alternative oppositional forum scheduled for the same dates. Policemen and doctors wanted to prove that I am mentally ill, but a psychiatrist rejected this conclusion after the examination, since I'm fine. A similar situation is observed in the South Kazakhstan region. There, a trade union leader, Ibrahim Junizbekov, was sentenced to 6 days of administrative arrest for insulting the court. On the evening of October 25th, he was brought to the Shymkent reception center. Perhaps this is a coincidence, but Junizbekov was also invited to the alternative summit. There is a total chaos in the Saragash area. Judges even make wrong decisions.
незаконные решения выносит.
Aynur Kurmanov, the initiator of the protest summit, is away on the foreign trip. His fellow trade union activists do not see anything positive about the actions of the authorities. The hard pressuring of public figures ready for a dialogue would only make the situation worse. By persecuting trade union leaders and authorities make the matters worse and destabilize the situation. At the same time, there could appear some third force, which we do not even think about right now, that could adjust the situation unexpectedly. The leader of the independent trade union says that Kazakhstan has witnesses the rise of purging of trade union and public leaders. Since the lists of participants of the alternative summit are only being compiled now, it is safe to assume that the authorities will likely intensify their pressure as more people will confirm their participation in the oppositional forum.
Arrests of trade union activists as well as other facts of human rights violations will become part of the special report presented by the chairman of the National Public Union Talmas Aynur Kurmanov to the Human Rights Commission of the European Parliament. The oppositionist was invited to Brussels after the statement of the European Member of Parliament from the Irish Socialist Party, Joe Higgins. Last week he called all 55 member states of the organization to boycott the upcoming summit in Astana.
Aynur Kurmanov, the leader of the union Talmas, was invited to Brussels, Belgium by the European Parliament's Human Rights Commission to make a special presentation on October 26 about the situation in Kazakhstan. The interest of MEPs was caused by the recent report made by the member of Irish Socialist Party, Joe Higgins. A week ago he called the 55 members of the OSCE to cease their cooperation with the vicious regime of Nazarbayev, cancel the planned summit in December and univocally condemn Kazakh authorities that violate the basic principles of democracy and human rights.
Kazakhstan under President Nazarbayev is a totalitarian dictatorship with systematic repression of human rights. We received chilling testimony of a monstrous regime of extreme brutality in many Kazakh prisons, with recently released prisoners describing grotesque degradation of prisoners, with systematic savage beatings, brutal rape and other tortures. In view of this, it is shameful that Kazakhstan was awarded the chairmanship of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe for 2010, with a major summit of the heads of state of the OSCE in December in the capital Astana. Shamefully, President Nazarbayev, responsible for this nightmare, is on an unofficial visit to the European Union next week.
Coincidentally, President Nazarbayev is also visiting Belgium with a working visit. At the same time, it is expected that the number of meetings scheduled for the head of state will deal with issues related to the upcoming OSCE summit in Astana. There is, however, a different opinion. Supposedly, Nazarbayev will attempt to address the consequences of the speech made by Higgins. Unsurprisingly, the Foreign Affairs Ministry denied this possibility. Similar statements have been made numerous times before. I want to add that the official decision on the summit was made a while ago, so there was enough time for the so-called silence procedure. There was no objection from any of the 55 countries except for Kazakhstan, which initiated the summit. According to this result, we are now preparing for the summit. Aynur Kurmanov feels it is possible his report could negatively affect the fate of the upcoming event. If the activists will manage to impress the MEPs, they will be able to convince their respective country leaders not to attend the summit and send their representatives instead. Obviously, this turn of events will make the president's administration extremely unhappy.